The morning sun of Leorin rose slowly over the crystal towers, casting a soft golden glow across the city. Tom stood on the balcony of his new suite, watching the people below move gracefully through the streets. He felt a calm sense of purpose he had never known before. A year had passed since the life oath ceremony, yet each day still felt like a discovery. He was no longer just a human visitor. He was now part of Leorin history, a symbol of courage and a bridge between worlds. The palace was alive with activity. Guards practiced formations in the courtyard. Students of diplomacy debated ideas in the halls, and servants moved silently, maintaining the elegance of the city. Tom had learned to walk among them with confidence. He no longer felt out of place. Instead, he understood the balance between respect and leadership, between humility and responsibility. Princess Lyra entered the balcony quietly, her presence soft yet commanding. She had grown close to Tom over the past year. Their bond was no longer just ceremonial lit, was a partnership built on trust and understanding. Her calm blue eyes met his, and she smiled. "Good morning," she said. "The council meets soon. They are eager to hear your proposals for the new trade routes." Tom nodded. "I have studied the reports overnight. I think I have some improvements that will benefit both Lyrans and humans." She tilted her head slightly. "Then you are ready. Your words have power, Tom. Remember that leadership is not only about technology. It is about understanding hearts." He smiled. "I will keep that in mind." As they walked to the council chamber, Tom noticed the respect of everyone they passed. Even strangers bowed or nodded. This was not just tradition. It was genuine recognition of his role in their society. He felt humbled. The memory of the rebel attack that had changed his life still lingered in his mind. That one act of courage had set in motion a future he could never have imagined. The council chamber was filled with advisors from every part of Leorin. Today, they discussed trade, defense, and energy distribution. Tom spoke confidently, using his human knowledge to suggest improvements. He explained how small adjustments to the energy flow could save resources and reduce risk. He also suggested ways to strengthen the trade network with human colonies, sharing mutual benefit. The advisors listened carefully. Some asked questions, others offered counterpoints, but all respected his input. Princess Lyra watched him from her seat beside the king, her expression calm but attentive. When Tom finished, the king nodded and addressed the chamber. "Tom of humanity has shown wisdom and courage. His ideas honor both our worlds. We will implement the proposed changes gradually under his guidance. This is how we build peace through action, not just words." The council members murmured their approval. Tom felt a quiet pride. He had never imagined that a simple act of saving someone could lead to such responsibility. Yet now, he understood that courage and service were recognized across worlds. After the council meeting, Lyra led Tom through the palace gardens. The twin moons shone faintly in the sky, reflecting on the streams and floating flowers. Birds with wings of light moved gracefully through the air. Tom paused, taking a deep breath. He realized how much he had learned in the past year. He had adapted to a new world, earned respect, and found a sense of belonging he had never known on Harmony Point. "Do you ever miss your old life?" Lyra asked softly. Tom shook his head. "Sometimes I think about the station, my friends, and the quiet work I did. But this feels like where I am meant to be. I have a purpose here now." She nodded. "That is good. You are part of something larger than yourself. You have brought hope to our people and strengthened the bond between humans and Lyrans." They spent the day visiting schools, energy stations, and workshops. Tom explained human engineering techniques and listened to the concerns of citizens. He realized that leadership was not just about giving orders. It was about understanding, listening, and guiding. By evening, he felt tired but fulfilled. As the sun set, the city transformed. Floating lights appeared above the streets, casting a gentle glow. Citizens gathered in the main plaza for the annual Festival of Unity, a celebration of the alliance between humans and Lyrans. Tom and Lyra walked to the center of the plaza, hand in hand. The crowd cheered, and their voices echoed through the city. The king raised his hand. Today we honor Tom of humanity, protector of Leorin, and symbol of unity between worlds. May his courage and wisdom continue to guide us. Tom stepped forward, humbled by the acknowledgement. He looked at the crowd and spoke softly but clearly. "I am honored to be part of your world," he said. "I never imagined that one act of courage would lead me here. I have learned from you all, and I will continue to serve with honesty and dedication. Together, humans and Lyrans can achieve what neither could alone." The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers filling the night. Children waved glowing ribbons, elders nodded in approval, and even the distant mountains seemed to shimmer with light. Tom felt a deep sense of connection. He realized that bravery and kindness could unite even the farthest corners of the galaxy. After the celebration, the king invited Tom to the royal hall. "You have grown beyond what we expected," he said. "Your courage saved my daughter, and your wisdom has strengthened our world. You are not only a member of our family, but a true leader. The citizens trust you, and so do I." Tom bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, I am grateful for your guidance and trust. I will continue to serve and honor both our peoples." The king smiled. "Good. Tomorrow we begin new projects to further strengthen our alliance. You will lead them with Lyra at your side." Tom felt a quiet warmth. He looked at Lyra, who gave him a small, encouraging smile. Together, they had become a team. Together, they would guide the future. Over the next few days, Tom worked tirelessly with the council and citizens. He helped improve the energy grid, reorganized trade routes, and even trained young engineers in human techniques. Lyrans began to see him not as an outsider, but as one of their own. His bond with Princess Lyra grew stronger. They shared ideas, laughter, and quiet moments under the twin moons. Each day, Tom realized that courage, kindness, and dedication could change not just a life, but an entire world. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Lyra spoke softly. "You have become more than I imagined. You are respected, trusted, and loved by our people. I am proud to have you beside me." While Tom smiled. "I could not have imagined any of this. I came to a wedding, and I found a new home. I will do everything I can to honor it." The twin moons reflected in their eyes as they looked out over the city. The lights of the streets shimmered like stars, and the soft hum of the energy fields filled the air. Tom felt a deep peace. He had arrived as a guest, survived an attack, and now had a purpose that reached far beyond himself. He was part of the royal family, a symbol of unity, and a protector of two worlds. The next day, the king called Tom and Lyra to a ceremony in the Grand Hall. The citizens had gathered to honor the anniversary of the life oath. The hall glowed with light. Banners hung from the ceiling, and music filled the air. Tom stood beside Lyra as the king raised his hands. "Today, we celebrate the bond that changed our world," the king said. "Tom of humanity is no longer just a guest. He is a member of our family, a protector of Leorin, and a bridge between humans and Lyrans. Let his courage and kindness guide us into a future of peace and unity." The crowd cheered, and Tom felt the weight of the moment. He had come to a wedding as a stranger. He had faced danger and fear, and now he had become a part of something greater than himself. He looked at Lyra, who smiled with quiet pride. Together they had faced the past, and now would lead into the future. After the ceremony, Tom stood on a balcony looking over the city. The twin moons shone brightly, reflecting in the crystal towers. He touched the faint glowing mark on his chest, reminder of the bond that had changed his life. He thought about Harmony Point in his old life. It felt far away now, like a dream. He had found a new purpose, a new home, and a new family. Courage had brought him here, kindness had kept him here, and wisdom would guide him forward. Princess Lyra joined him quietly. "The people trust you, Tom. I trust you. Together, we will face whatever the future brings." Tom nodded. "I am ready. I will do everything I can to honor this bond and the trust of your people." The moons of Leorin reflected on the city below, glowing softly as if blessing the moment. Tom realized that life had changed forever. He had come to a wedding as a simple engineer, and he had left as a son of a king, a protector, and a symbol of unity between worlds. The city lights flickered gently in the night, and the hum of energy filled the air. Tom felt a quiet joy in his heart. He had found courage, purpose, and belonging. The human who had once walked among strangers was now part of the stars themselves. And so, under the twin moons of Leorin, Tom embraced his new life. He was no longer a visitor. He was family, a leader, and a bridge between worlds. The future awaited, full of possibilities, challenges, and hope. He had stepped into destiny, and he would face it with honor, courage, and the heart of a human who had become a son of the stars. The city of Leorin glowed beneath him as the night settled. Tom knew he had found his place among the stars, where one act of courage had changed everything. And the life oath had transformed him from a simple guest into the king's son-in-law. The world of Taraxis shined like a pale green jewel in the wide dark sky. It was home to the Renari, an ancient race known for their intelligence and pride. Their cities floated above calm oceans, their towers glimmered with silver light, and their sky bridges carried people who had long forgotten what it meant to walk on dirt. Life on Taraxis was peaceful, structured, and ruled by strict traditions. Among its noble houses, the royal family stood at the heart of every decision. And within that family lived Princess Mira, a young woman known for her questions that never ended. Mira was not like most of her people. Where others spoke in cold logic, she spoke with curiosity. Her father, King Rorak, often reminded her that a princess must listen more than she speaks. But Mira had never learned how to stop asking. She wanted to understand why stars burned, why her people had built cities so far from the ground, and why the galaxy feared humans so much. When word spread that a human delegation was arriving on Taraxis to discuss an alliance, Mira's heart filled with wonder. She had read about humans in her lessons. The Renari described them as reckless explorers, emotional creatures who built their power through unity and instinct rather than control. They were said to be brave and foolish at the same time. To Mira, that made them fascinating. The day the human ship arrived, the entire court gathered in the Grand Hall of Light. The hall was a massive chamber with walls made of crystal that caught the morning sun and scattered it across the floor. Tall banners of green and gold hung from the ceiling. The Renari nobles stood in perfect lines, silent and watchful. When the human vessel landed outside the city gates, the sound echoed through the hall like thunder. Mira stood beside her father, her silver robe falling over her shoulders. Her long hair, tied with a band of shining metal, caught the light as she leaned forward to see the visitors. The great doors opened, and a group of humans entered, their steps firm and their eyes bright. They looked so different from her people. Their skin varied in shade, their clothes simple but elegant, and their faces alive with emotion. At their front walked a man named Dan, the envoy from Earth. He was tall and steady, with a quiet confidence that drew attention. He bowed deeply before the king and the princess, his voice calm and respectful when he spoke. Mira noticed how his words carried warmth, something the cold tones of her people lacked. "On behalf of Earth," Dan said, "I thank you for welcoming us. May our worlds find peace and trust in this meeting." King Rorak nodded but did not smile. "Peace is built on reason, not emotion," he said. "Let us begin with understanding, and perhaps peace will follow." Mira's gaze stayed on Dan. He met her eyes briefly, and she saw no fear there. Most aliens who visited the Renari court avoided looking directly at the royal family. But this human held her gaze for a moment before bowing again. It surprised her. She could feel his curiosity matching her own. After the formal greetings ended, the visitors were taken to the royal garden to rest. The garden was a wide circle of glowing trees and soft grass that shimmered with blue light at night. Mira often went there to think, and that evening she found herself walking toward it again. She had hoped to see the human envoy up close, not as a guest before the throne, but as a person. When she arrived, she saw Don standing near one of the glowing fountains, speaking with one of her advisors. His eyes studied the flowers that moved gently with the wind. When he noticed Mira, he straightened quickly and gave another respectful bow. "Your Highness," he said. I did not expect to see you here, Mira smiled faintly. This is my favorite place. The garden keeps its own secrets, and it listens better than most people do. Dan seemed unsure how to respond, but then he smiled slightly too. It is beautiful. Nothing like this exists on Earth. That caught her attention. You have no gardens? She asked. He laughed softly. We have many, but they do not glow or float. Ours grow from the ground, not in the air. Myra's eyes widened. From the ground? You mean soil? Yes, he said. Real soil, from the earth itself. She had seen soil only in old pictures. Her world had left the surface behind long ago. The thought of plants growing in dirt instead of light fascinated her. They talked longer than they had planned. Mira asked about Earth's oceans, its animals, and its people. Don told her about forests that stretched for miles, mountains that cut through clouds, and cities that still stood on land. He spoke of laughter, music, and how humans worked together even when they disagreed. Each word built an image in her mind of a world full of color and sound. She listened closely, her heart growing lighter with every story. When the palace bells rang to mark the evening hour, Mira realized how much time had passed. Her advisor looked displeased, but she ignored it. She wanted to know more about humans. They seemed alive in a way her people were not. Don noticed her interest and asked, Have you never left Taraxis, Princess? She shook her head. No. My duty keeps me here. My father says the galaxy is full of danger. He nodded. He is right, but it is also full of wonder. Sometimes the risk is worth it. Myra looked at him quietly. She had never heard such words before. The Renari did not speak of risk or wonder. They spoke of order and control. For the first time, she began to think that maybe her people had lost something long ago. Later that night, during the royal dinner, Mira sat beside her father as the humans joined them. The hall buzzed with quiet conversation. Plates of bright fruit and shining drinks filled the tables. Dan sat among the foreign guests, speaking politely but with ease. Mira watched how he laughed with others, how he listened when someone else spoke. He seemed to carry no fear, no stiffness, only calm strength. When the king asked about Earth's leadership, Dan explained how humans often argued, but found balance through cooperation. We do not always agree, he said, but we believe that strength grows when different minds share ideas. Mira could see her father's disapproval. Chaos cannot lead to peace, he said. Perhaps, Don replied, but emotion can guide reason when used with care. The hall grew silent. To speak of emotion before the king was daring, yet Dan did not lower his gaze. Mira felt a spark of respect rise in her chest. She had never seen anyone speak so boldly to her father. After the dinner, as the humans left for their quarters, Mira approached Dan quietly in the corridor. You spoke with courage, she said. My father does not like such open words. Dan smiled kindly. I did not mean to offend. I only spoke what I believe. You believe emotion has value? She asked. Yes. It gives us purpose. Without it, we would not dream, explore, or protect what we love. Mira stood still for a moment, thinking about his words. The Renari viewed emotion as weakness, yet this human spoke of it as strength. She realized that what made humans different might also make them powerful. When she returned to her room that night, looked out her window at the glowing city below. The towers stretched into the stars, shining cold and perfect. But now, for the first time, that perfection seemed empty. She thought about Earth, about forests and soil, about laughter and argument, and about a man who had spoken of emotion like a treasure. It's not a flaw. The next morning, Mira joined the first day of alliance discussions. Her father sat at the center table, surrounded by advisors. Dan stood across the room with his team, ready to begin. Maps of trade routes and energy plans floated above the table. The conversation was careful and tense. Each side wanted safety, but neither wished to appear weak. Mira listened quietly at first. The humans offered open cooperation, but the Renari demanded strict control. Every time Dan tried to explain the benefits of mutual trust, the council answered with caution. Mira could see his patience holding, yet his tone stayed calm and respectful. Finally, she spoke. "Perhaps trust must start with a single act," she said. Her father looked at her sharply, but she continued. "If both sides fear loss, then neither will gain. Let us share something small first, a gesture that proves intent." Don nodded in agreement. "That is wise, Princess. Small steps build great bridges." The council murmured among themselves. The idea was unusual, but the logic clear. Her father gave a slow nod. "Very well. We shall test cooperation with a minor exchange." The tension eased. Mira noticed a faint smile on Dan's face. For the first time, she felt that her voice had changed something real. That evening, as the meeting ended, Dan thanked her privately. "You helped more than you know," he said. "I only spoke what felt true." She replied. "Then truth is stronger here than I expected," he said. Mira smiled slightly. She felt a warmth she could not name. Her world had taught her to think with the mind, not the heart, but that rule seemed harder to follow now. She wondered what else humans could teach her, how much she had yet to learn. That night, she lay awake in her chamber, listening to the faint hum of the city. Somewhere below, the human visitors rested, unaware that a princess of another world was thinking about their strange and fearless ways. In her heart, curiosity burned brighter than ever. She did not know it yet, but the answers she sought about humans would change more than her mind. They would change her world. The sun of Taraxis rose with a soft green light that spread across the sky like flowing water. The royal city began to glow as its silver towers caught the light. Inside the palace, the air was calm, but filled with quiet activity. The human delegation prepared for another long day of discussions, and Princess Mira prepared herself to learn more. The night before had left her restless. The words of the human envoy, Dan, still echoed in her mind. He had spoken of emotion as strength, and of trust as something built through courage. Those ideas stayed with her like a song she could not forget. When Mira entered the Hall of Understanding, she saw Dan already there, standing beside a group of her father's advisors. His expression was calm, but his eyes were sharp, observing every movement and every detail. The humans had brought small devices that displayed their trade maps and research data. The Renari watched with interest but kept a polite distance. To them, humans were still outsiders. Only Myra seemed eager to bridge that distance. The morning meeting began. The discussion moved around resources, trade routes, and shared security. Myra listened carefully as Dan explained how Earth valued cooperation. He spoke of fair exchange and open communication, things that the Renari found unusual. Her father asked questions about Earth's population, its cities, and how humans survived without strict social order. Don answered each question with patience. His tone stayed calm even when the king's questions carried hidden challenge. At one point, Don mentioned how humans often act with instinct when facing danger. The Renari Council looked surprised. "You trust emotion in decision-making?" one of them asked. Don smiled slightly. "Sometimes instinct saves lives when logic arrives too late. Emotion is not chaos if it is guided by purpose." Mira saw the quiet disapproval on her father's face. But she also saw something else in the eyes of the advisors: curiosity. Even they could not ignore the calm conviction in the human's words. When the meeting ended, the council left for lunch. Mira lingered behind, watching as Dan packed his datapads. He looked up when she approached. "You listen very closely, Princess," he said. "I can see you are not like the others." Mira tilted her head. "And what makes you think that?" "You ask with your eyes," he said. "Most people wait for permission to be curious. You do not." She smiled faintly. "Curiosity is not always welcome here. My father believes too many questions make the mind restless." Don nodded. "Maybe that is true. But questions also keep the spirit alive." They walked together through the palace garden again. The glowing plants shimmered softly in the light breeze. Mira guided him along a path that led to a quiet pool surrounded by crystal stones. "This place helps me think," she said. "My people come here to reflect on logic, but I come to wonder." Dan looked around with open admiration. "It is peaceful," he said. You are lucky to have such beauty. Mira turned toward him. Tell me about Earth again. You said your gardens grow from the ground? Do your people live close to nature? Some do, Dan said. Others live in cities, surrounded by buildings and light. But even in the largest cities, humans plant trees, flowers, and grass. It reminds us that life grows from small things. Mira looked down at the shining stones under her feet. We forgot that long ago. The ground of Taraxis was abandoned when we built our floating cities. We left the soil behind. Don nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes progress hides the roots that gave us life. They sat near the edge of the pool, and for a while, silence filled the air. The soft hum of energy from the floating platforms below the city blended with the gentle ripple of the water. Then Myra spoke again. You said yesterday that humans act with emotion. I want to understand what that means. To my people, emotion is weakness. Yet you speak as if it gives strength. Don looked at her carefully, then spoke in a calm voice. Emotion can be dangerous when uncontrolled, but it also gives reason for action. We love, we fear, we hope, and those feelings drive us to build, protect, and explore. Without emotion, we would only survive. With it, we live. Mira listened closely. His words stirred something inside her that she could not name. So emotion gives meaning to life, she said. Yes, he answered. It gives direction even when logic fails. She thought for a moment before asking another question. Your people form families through emotion too, yes? Yes, he said. We build families because of care and love, not by command. Mira frowned slightly. My people do not choose. Our unions are arranged for balance and stability. There is no personal choice. It is decided by the council. Dan seemed surprised. So you cannot choose who to spend your life with? No, she said quietly. It is decided before we are even of age. He looked at her with sympathy, but did not speak. Myra felt her chest tighten slightly. She had never questioned her society's rules before, but now they seemed cold and heavy. Do humans ever regret their choices? She asked. Sometimes, Dan said. But most prefer the right to choose and fail, rather than have no choice at all. Mira stared at the glowing water. The idea of choice felt strange, but also beautiful. Her people valued perfection, but maybe perfection was not the same as happiness. Their conversations stretched longer. They spoke about music, art, and friendship. Mira learned that humans express emotion through sound and color, while the Renari controlled it through silence and order. She was fascinated by how humans laughed freely and cried without shame. She could not imagine such open expression in her court. Every feeling was hidden behind calm words and still faces. As the sun lowered, they returned to the palace for the evening meal. The guards watched them but said nothing. Myra noticed how their eyes followed her, filled with quiet judgment. Rumors had already begun to spread. Some nobles whispered that the princess had grown too friendly with the human envoy. She ignored them. Curiosity was not a crime, even if others feared it. That night, Mira could not sleep again. She stood by her window, watching the floating lights of the city move across the sky. Her mind was full of questions. Why did humans value emotion so deeply? Why did they risk so much for it? What made them brave enough to live with chaos? She remembered Dan's calm voice and the warmth behind his words. For the first time, she wished to understand not through study, but through experience. The next morning, she requested to visit the human quarters under the reason of cultural study. Her father allowed it reluctantly, warning her to stay formal. When she entered the human section of the palace, she was struck by how different it felt. The air was less rigid. The humans spoke and laughed freely, their movements natural. It felt alive in a way the royal halls never did. Dan welcomed her with respect. "Princess, this is an honor," he said. "I wanted to see how you live," she replied. "Our customs are very different." He showed her their small living area filled with simple furniture and tools. The humans had decorated the walls with pictures of mountains, oceans, and skies from Earth. Mira touched one of the images carefully. "It looks so real," she said. "It is real," Dan answered. "That is our home." Sometimes we carry pieces of it with us, so we do not forget who we are. She admired that idea. We carry only records of logic, she said. Perhaps that is why we forget feeling. Dan offered her a seat. Ask what you wish to know. I will answer. Mira hesitated. She had so many questions that she did not know where to start. Finally, she said, Your people speak often of bonding and unity. I want to understand how you form such deep connections. How do you know when two people belong together? Dan looked thoughtful. It is not something we can measure. We know through emotion. Sometimes it begins with friendship, sometimes with shared struggle, sometimes with simple care. It grows slowly until both hearts move together. Mira listened carefully. And how often do humans seek such bonds? Dan smiled slightly at the question. It depends. Some find connection once and keep it forever. Others take time, learning through life. There is no single way. Mira found that answer confusing and fascinating. To her people, life was predictable. Every union followed law, every choice approved by the council. But humans followed feeling, not law. It was wild, yet it seemed honest. She looked at him and said softly, Your world must be filled with emotion. It is, Dan said. It brings both joy and pain, but we accept both as part of being alive. Mira thought about that for a long time. The idea of accepting pain as part of life felt strange. Her people avoided all discomfort, yet humans faced it with courage. She began to see why they were known across the stars for their strength. Their emotions gave them power that logic could not. Before she left, she turned to him again. Thank you for your honesty, she said. You make me see my world differently. Dan bowed his head. Sometimes new eyes help us find truth, he said. When she returned to her chambers, Maid noticed the distant look in her eyes. You seem lost in thought, princess, she said. Mira smiled softly. Perhaps I am found instead, she replied. That night, the palace lights dimmed, and the city floated in silent peace. But in the heart of the royal tower, a young princess lay awake thinking about a strange race from a distant world who lived by feeling instead of rules. She did not know yet that her curiosity would soon lead her to challenge everything her people believed. For now, she only knew that she wanted to understand more. The world she thought she knew no longer felt complete. The following days on Taraxis passed under soft green skies and silent tension. The humans continued their talks with the Renari Council, trying to shape a peaceful agreement. The palace remained bright and calm, but whispers had started spreading through its halls. Servants spoke quietly when the princess walked by. Advisors exchanged looks that carried questions they did not dare to speak aloud. Everyone had noticed the growing friendship between Princess Myra and the human envoy Dawn. Myra tried to ignore the whispers. She spent most of her time studying human history and learning about Earth's ways. Her lessons had once focused only on logic, but now her mind sought more than knowledge. She wanted understanding. She wanted to know how emotion could shape an entire species. The more she read, the more she realized how deep the difference between humans and the Renari truly was. The Renari lived for order. Every emotion was measured. Every choice followed law. They had forgotten joy and sorrow, replacing them with control and balance. Humans, however, lived through feeling. Their history was full of mistakes, yet every mistake carried growth. They built empires, lost them, rebuilt again, and kept going. They survived pain by holding on to hope. To Myra, it was both strange and beautiful. One afternoon, she visited the human quarters again, under the excuse of observing cultural exchange. Dan welcomed her warmly as always. He had set up a small display of Earth's history using a holographic map. Mountains, forests, and oceans appeared in shining blue light. He explained how humans had crossed dangerous lands, built cities from stone and metal, and reached the stars not through perfection, but through determination. Mira listened in silence. Each story filled her with new wonder. Your world sounds full of chaos, she said, but also full of life. Dawn nodded. That is what makes us human. We fall and rise again. Every failure teaches us something new. she thought for a moment. On Taraxis, failure is not allowed. Every mistake is punished. Don looked at her gently. Then you are taught never to try something uncertain. That must be a heavy way to live. Myra lowered her gaze. It is the way of our people. But lately, I have begun to question if it is right. He smiled kindly. Questions are the first step to change. They spoke for a long time. Mira asked about human families again. She wanted to understand why people on Earth formed bonds through emotion rather than duty. Dan told her that family was more than blood. It was built on love and care. We are not perfect, he said, but we choose to stand by those we love. It gives us strength. Mira repeated his words quietly. Strength through love. The phrase felt strange on her tongue. In her world, strength came from control. But she could see how humans had survived because of connection, not command. After she returned to her chambers, she looked into the mirror and saw confusion in her own eyes. Her reflection looked the same, yet something had changed inside her. She no longer felt complete in her perfect world. The next day, the council gathered again to finalize parts of the treaty. The Renari wanted strict control over trade and movement, while the humans asked for open cooperation. The discussion grew tense. Some Renari elders accused humans of being too unpredictable. Mira watched silently until her father turned to her for her opinion. Daughter, King Rorek said, you have studied these humans closely. Tell us, do you believe they can be trusted? All eyes turned to her. She hesitated, aware that every word she spoke would carry weight. Then she said, I believe they can. They act with emotion, not deceit. They keep their word because they feel honor, not because of law. A murmur ran through the council. Her father frowned. Emotion is not logic. How can feeling be stronger than reason? Myra stood tall. Because reason without feeling is empty. We follow rules, but a forgotten purpose. Humans follow purpose, even when it costs them. The room fell silent. The king stared at her for a long moment, then dismissed the meeting. But Mira knew her words had already stirred something among the nobles. Some of them had looked thoughtful, others disapproving. She could sense that change was coming. That evening, her father called her to his private chamber. The room was dimly lit, filled with soft green light from the floating crystals above. He stood by the wide window, looking out at the city below. You speak too freely, Mira, he said. Our people must not see their princess enchanted by outsiders. I am not enchanted, father, she said. I am learning. Learning can lead to disobedience, he warned. Humans are dangerous. They use charm and emotion to gain control. You must keep your distance. Mira's heart ached. But father, they only seek peace. Their way may be different, but it has truth. He turned to her, his face stern. Truth is measured by logic, not by heart. Remember who you are. You are heir to a kingdom built on reason. She bowed respectfully, but said nothing more. When she left his chamber, her mind was heavy with doubt. She knew her father feared what he did not understand. Yet she could not unsee what she had learned. Later that night, she went to the palace balcony to clear her thoughts. The air was cool and quiet. From there she could see the faint lights of the human ship docked near the city's edge. She felt drawn to it, as if some invisible thread connected her to those strange visitors from another world. A familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. You should not stand alone at this hour, Don said softly as he stepped onto the balcony. She turned, surprised but not alarmed. How did you find me? I was walking through the upper hall, he said. I saw you here and thought perhaps something troubled you. Mira looked out at the stars. My father does not trust your kind. He believes emotion is weakness. Dan stood beside her. Many have thought that before. But emotion is what gives us the strength to face what we fear. She turned toward him, her eyes filled with quiet wonder. You believe fear can be faced through feeling? Yes, he said, because emotion gives us reason to act. We fight to protect those we love, to defend what we believe in. Without emotion, there is nothing to stand for. Mira looked up at the stars again. Perhaps that is why humans are brave. You have something to protect. Dan smiled. Everyone has something worth protecting, Princess. Sometimes we just forget what it is. They stood in silence for a while. The night air wrapped around them like a gentle blanket. Mira felt calm near him, as if his presence carried a warmth her cold city had never known. The next morning, rumors spread even faster. The court began whispering that the princess had been seen with the human envoy at night. Advisors urged the king to act before the royal image was damaged. Myra tried to focus on her duties, but every look she received carried judgment. Even her closest maid spoke carefully, afraid of saying the wrong thing. When she met Dan again in the garden, she told him about the growing suspicion. "They think I am being led away from duty," she said quietly. Dan frowned. "You should be careful. I would not want to cause you trouble." Mira shook her head. "You did not cause it. My curiosity did, and I do not regret it." He looked at her with calm respect. "Then let your curiosity be your strength. Change never begins without courage." He continued to talk, and Mira began to understand more about human connection. Dan explained how trust was built, not by rule, but by choice. "We trust because we decide to," he said. "That is what makes it strong." Mira repeated his words softly. "Trust by choice." She liked how that sounded. It felt free, not forced. When she returned to the palace later, she found her father in deep discussion with his council. He looked at her with tired eyes. "You may continue to attend the meetings," he said, "but you will not visit the humans without permission." Mira lowered her head, but inside she felt anger rising. Her father's control, once comforting, now felt like a cage. That night, she opened the window of her chamber and looked toward the stars. She could see Earth's blue mark in the distance through the observation screen. For the first time, she wondered what it would be like to walk on soil and see a sky filled with natural light. She imagined laughter in the open air, not bound by rule or fear, as she stood there. She realized something that left her breathless. The humans were not strange because of their emotions. They were powerful because of them. Their courage, creativity, and strength came from the heart. Her people had traded those gifts for control, and in that moment, she understood why humans inspired fear and admiration across the galaxy. They were alive in a way the Renari had forgotten how to be. The realization left her stunned. All her life, she had believed perfection was the highest goal. But now she saw that perfection without emotion was empty. True strength came from feeling deeply and choosing freely. Mira made a quiet promise to herself that night. She would not stop learning. She would keep asking, keep seeking, and maybe one day help her people see what she had seen. The humans had brought more than a treaty to Taraxis. They had brought a mirror, and through it, she saw her own world differently. The stars above shimmered like silver dust as she whispered to the sky. "Perhaps there is more to life than reason." She stood there until dawn, watching the horizon glow. Her heart felt alive in a way it never had before. She did not know what path waited ahead, but she was ready to follow it wherever it led. The days on Taraxis grew warmer, and the green sun cast long shadows across the floating towers of the royal city. Princess Mira moved carefully through her duties, but her thoughts remained with the humans and the lessons they had begun to teach her. Her fascination with Dan was no longer just curiosity. It was admiration. She admired his patience, his courage, and the calm way he carried himself, even in tense moments. To her surprise, she realized she had begun to trust him in ways she had never trusted anyone in her own world. The palace council noticed her growing interest. Whispered warnings reached her ears through servants and aides. Some said she was ignoring tradition. Others questioned her loyalty to the kingdom. Even her own maid spoke cautiously, fearful of repeating the gossip. Yet Myra felt no fear. She knew the human envoy had changed the way she saw her people, and she could not turn away from what she had learned. One morning, as she walked through the royal garden, she found Dan waiting near the central fountain. The soft glow of the floating plants reflected in the water, casting moving patterns across the ground. Mira approached him, careful to avoid the eyes of passing guards. Princess Dan said, bowing slightly, "I hope you are well." "I am," she replied. "And you? Are you comfortable here?" among so many strangers? I am, he said, but it is better when you are near. You see things I cannot, and you remind me why these talks matter? Mira smiled faintly. She had never heard a human speak like that before. On Taraxis, compliments were measured and cautious, often carefully worded to avoid excess. Dan's words were simple and honest, and they warmed her heart. Their conversation drifted from diplomacy to stories about Earth and its people. Mira asked about family, friendship, and trust. Dan explained that humans built bonds because they valued connection and choice, not obligation. Mira listened carefully. Each answer contradicted the rigid traditions of her world. Do humans ever regret their choices? She asked suddenly. Sometimes, Dan said, but regret is part of learning. It reminds us that our decisions matter. We do not live by order alone. We live by the heart. Mira nodded slowly. His words lingered in her mind long after he left. She realized that emotion, which her people often dismissed, was a force that could guide, strengthen, and protect. It was power she had never considered. That afternoon, she returned to the council chamber. Her father, King Rorak, looked more serious than usual. Princess, he said, the humans request an audience with our nobles tonight. I expect you to remain formal and distant. Do not let personal feelings interfere with duty. Imra inclined her head, though inside she felt a quiet rebellion. She had already begun to see that following duty alone left life empty. Sometimes learning required risk. The meeting with the humans was tense. The Renari Council demanded strict rules for trade and travel. The humans requested trust and cooperation. Arguments flared. Mira noticed how Dan remained calm, speaking slowly and clearly, trying to explain their perspective. He never raised his voice, and yet he managed to hold the room's attention at one point. An elder of the council accused the humans of being reckless. You cannot predict their behavior, he said. Emotion is chaos. Don looked directly at the elder. Emotion is only chaos if it is ignored, he said. We do not act blindly. We act with purpose, guided by care and respect. That is why humans endure where others fail. Mira's heart quickened. She had never heard anyone speak to her council with such honesty and courage. She saw the nobility shift in their seats. Some looked shocked, others thoughtful. Her father's expression remained stern, but she could see a hint of doubt in his eyes. After the meeting ended, Mira asked Dan to walk with her in the garden again. They moved quietly among the glowing plants, discussing strategy and ideas. Mira felt a growing sense of partnership with him. Together, they were more effective than either could be alone. You see things differently, Dan said. Your perspective helps me understand your world. Help me see the truth my people hide from themselves, Mira replied as they walked. Mira realized the depth of her admiration for Dan. He had changed her understanding of leadership, trust, and courage. She felt a connection that went beyond duty. She knew she was learning more than she could ever have imagined. Rumors began to spread faster. Some nobles whispered that the princess was too close to the human envoy. Others warned the king that the princess might be influenced by foreign ideas. King Rorek summoned Mira to his chambers. Your behavior with the humans concerns me, he said. You risk dishonoring the crown. You must maintain distance. Mira looked at him, steady and calm. Father, I am learning. I am not dishonoring the crown. I am understanding it better. The humans show me strength we have forgotten. Strength comes from order, not emotion, he replied. Perhaps strength comes from both, she said softly. We have control, but we lack courage. They have courage, but they lack control. We can learn from each other. Her father's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more. Mira left the chamber with a sense of quiet resolve. She had chosen her path. She would continue to learn and understand, even if it meant disapproval. That evening, the palace hosted a grand feast. The humans and Renari gathered together. Music filled the air, soft and harmonious. The humans spoke freely, sharing stories of their home world. Mira observed how naturally they interacted, how laughter and kindness filled the room. She saw the contrast with her people, who spoke carefully and measured every word. She noticed Dan across the room, speaking with an elder about Earth's energy systems. He gestured calmly, explaining ideas with clarity. Mira felt a strange warmth watching him. It was not fear nor respect alone. It was admiration and trust. After the feast, she walked with Dan in the quiet corridors. "I feel as though I have begun to see the galaxy differently," she said. "Your people are full of courage, choice, and care. We have forgotten what it means to feel fully." Don nodded. "And you have reminded me that even those who are powerful in mind can learn from those who feel." Their footsteps echoed as they moved through the palace. Mira realized that their partnership was something rare. Together, they could bridge two very different worlds. Days later, a minor crisis struck. A small diplomatic dispute threatened to derail the alliance. Mira and Dan worked together to calm tensions. Her understanding of both cultures allowed her to translate ideas and find solutions. The Renari Council was impressed, though they did not say so openly after the crisis. Dan thanked her. "You helped more than you know," he said. "I only shared what I saw," Mira replied. "Seeing clearly is a rare gift," he said. The princess thought about his words. Perhaps she could show her people another way. Perhaps they could learn to balance control with courage, reason with feeling. That night, Mira stood on the balcony of her chambers looking out at the glowing city. The lights shimmered like stars fallen to the ground. She thought about the humans and the lessons they had given her. For the first time, she felt hope that her people could change. She realized that trust and understanding were stronger than fear. Her thoughts returned to Dan. She admired him, respected him, and trusted him. She understood why humans were seen as both unpredictable and powerful. Their strength came not from laws, rules, or control, but from their hearts. She made a quiet promise to herself. She would continue learning. She would continue asking questions. She would continue exploring emotions that her people had long forgotten. And she would do it alongside the humans, even if it meant defying the expectations of her father and the council. That night, the city slept, but Mira's mind was alive. She had discovered something that no lesson or history book could teach. Humans lived with courage, choice, and care. They built strength through heart, not law. And for the first time, she believed that her people could learn the same lesson. Mira felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Change was coming, and she would be at the center of it. The stars above Taraxis shimmered like tiny mirrors, and somewhere in that quiet galaxy, a human had taught a princess that strength could be found in the heart. The story of trust, courage, and understanding had only just begun.